I have a surprise for you, King George says to Queen Charlotte. And when she gets there, on their wedding night, he's like, "You are to sleep here, and I will be sleeping at Q. Sorrows, sorrows, prayers." Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another review on the Review Garden. I started watching Queen Charlotte again since it's kind of like the middle part between season one. Well, at least I'm assuming it's the middle part between season two and season three, right? Because even though they're talking a little bit about how Queen Charlotte met George, um, they still have the present parts where Violet and Lady Danbury are participating in, and even Queen Charlotte, right? Because in this, she has to secure an heir, right? So, but let's go back to the night of their wedding. It's kind of weird that he would tell her, persuade her to marry him and be like, "Ooh, I'm just George." And then when she's trying to understand where he's coming from, for her to spend the night of the wedding by herself, especially since back then they don't really know what the night of the wedding is or what the marital duty is. So like she's in her mind, she's like, what is going on? And him, he's like, I need to go. I need to go. And obviously, like, when you're first watching this, you're like, what is going on? But, you know, later on you find out why he did that. But still, in her mind, it's like, why are you acting the way that you're acting, especially on our wedding night? And that's a big house for just her by herself, right? And him, he's just gonna go to his other place, right? And the way you know the season started in present time, where she's trying to secure an heir, it's funny that she's so pressed about the town getting married and who's the diamond, who's this, who's that. But like she has 15 children, and like many of them are not even married. Many of them are not even interested in um, you know, producing an heir. And most of the guys, they have children, just not legitimate children. Legitimate as in they probably, you know, paid, and then the lady got pregnant, and the child doesn't count unless they marry someone of nobility. Then and only then would the child count as, legitimate, and could be an heir of sort, right? So the queen did say it, and apparently altogether the guys have 50, 50, 50 illegitimate children, and none of them can be counted as the heir. So now they need to get married in order for get married to noble ladies in order for their next children to count as, the heir to the throne. So I've just watched episode 2 and 3, and pretty much in the Queen Charlotte and season one had the most sex scenes. Well, mostly Queen Charlotte, right? Because you had Lord Danbury, right? Oh, ew. And Lady Danbury. You had Lady Danbury with Violet's daddy. You had Queen Charlotte and George, and then you even had Grimsley and his boyfriend, right? All that happening. So it's pretty interesting, like how they choose which show to have, you know, all of these sex scenes in, right? And speaking of, um, Lady Danbury and Lord Danbury, this man is so rude. I'm like, what the hell? First of all of the efforts were Lady Danbury's efforts. And this man is like, yes, my efforts paid off. I'm sorry. What exactly did you do? She's the one who's been meeting with I don't know why they call her the Dowager Princess, because technically, isn't she the Queen Dowager? Mm, but isn't that what her title should be? But yeah, so she's the one who's been meeting with Queen Charlotte. She's the one who's been meeting with the Dowager Princess. Um so she's the one getting, everything in motion for him to be like, "Oh, I'm this, I'm that." I'm like, "No, you're not." And you know, you could kind of see the way he was and the way Lady Danbury is now when she saw Violet in the church, and she told Violet like she was very fortunate because Violet was like, "Oh, it's Edmund's um birthday, and that she wants to celebrate," and she was like reminiscing. And then Lady Danbury told her like, "You're very fortunate," and Violet kind of got mad that she said that, but then Lady Danbury had to explain to her like, your husband was very loving, my husband was not. He believed women were this and this and that. So she donates money to, she founded this foundation for girls, orphan girls, just to spite her, just to spite her dead husband, right? So it's different with the two of them. Um, you know, and like sh- later on, not yet, but later on, we find out after that Lady Danbury first love was actually hus- Violet's father. And I think it's funny too, because if only Violet's mom could see them now, because Violet's mom sounds so racist. Like she has a problem mingling with the black people in the show. Like, oh, like even though they became lords and ladies, she still thinks like they're beneath her. And I'm like, your granddaughter is married to a black man. Your grandson married an Indian girl. Like, ma'am, let's talk about diversity. Like, okay, your descendants are not pure white. So, like, if only she could see them now. And they talking about, oh, how, oh, why do we have to interact with them? Da, 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 da. So it's kind of interesting how with a mom like that, Violet didn't pick up from her, right? And plus, it's also because Violet was closer to her dad. And which is why, like, when Violet finds out that Lady Danbury used to be with her dad, it's like, it's funny because now they're kind of like, they're really close friends, you know? And yeah, there are two people that I feel the most sorry for in Queen Charlotte, and that's George and Lady Danbury. Let's start with George, right? So, with like everything he's going through, and I was kind of, it was interesting when you start watching the series and then you were seeing it from her perspective, and then episode 4, they changed it and they showed you from his perspective and everything that he's going through. And, it seems like what happens to him, it happens when he's nervous. Like when he's nervous about a situation, he starts, his hands starts shaking. And, looking at their children, I'm kind of like none of them are like the father. uh, but then again, they didn't really show you all of the kids, so who knows, maybe some of them have it, but they didn't really say whether that was true or not, right? And then when Queen Charlotte found out about his condition and she went to go see the mom, before that, George wanted to stop getting the treatment, quote, treatments, right? But then when um when he heard the conversation with Queen Charlotte and his mom, then he went back to the doctor and was like, oh, keep going. And I don't know, it's just torture what they're doing to him. And in that time, I guess they didn't quite understand his condition, so they were trying extreme stuff. But I'm like, I don't know. That's a little too extreme, like dumping his head in cold water and then putting him in the chair. I'm like, that's a little too much. And granted, she did not know that that's the kind of what was going on. Like Queen Charlotte wasn't aware, right? Until she was like, enough is enough. She went to go get her husband and bring him over back to Buckingham, right? And then moving forward, she knew how to calm him down and she figured out the different ways, right? I mean, they were able to have, 15 kids moving forward. So the show itself, you could kind of see where their love comes from. And when, Lady Danbury and Violet are talking about the queen, about how she's a widow, but she's not a widow. She hasn't, her garden has, is not in bloom or whatever. She hasn't gardened in a long time. Um, but the queen, just like when she was talking to her son, she's like, it's a choice, right? You make a decision to love that one person till the end of time. And, you know, I do find it interesting. And I did say this before, interesting, as in she pushed so many people to get married, but she didn't push her own kids to get married. Now, granted, those 2 seasons were Bridgerton, so it was about the Bridgerton people, and here is about Queen Charlotte. So it does make sense that her kids would marry in her show. So the part where, she has her 2 sons marry those 2 other princesses, and they were like, well, we don't want to get married. You forgot that our oldest brother is in charge. And then she was like, oh, right. be a good boy and grant permission for them to get married. So like that part was hilarious, right? So now one of them is going to have a child, so the line continues, right? Now moving on to Lady Danbury. Her her life was just oof, right? She said ever since 3 years old, they promised her to this man. So she pretty much grew up learning everything about this man just to please him, right? She doesn't know anything about herself, really, after her husband died. And this man died, well, I'm assuming he died happy because it was right after they threw their first ball, right? And and then he wanted to garden her, and then he just dropped right in the middle of it. So but then now, since everything fell on him, right? Because he's a lord now, the queen dowager granted him the lordship. So he spent a lot of money trying to keep up with being a lord, and then pretty much left her with nothing. And now she needs to go figure out how to, you know, go figure out how to continue the line, because the council of lordship was like, uh, we were experimenting. We did not talk about inheritance yet. So we don't know if for sure they are going to have the same inheritance laws as we do. So, she needs to figure out how to get her son to carry down the Danbury, the Lord Danbury, title. And then this brings us to, you know, the queen and her, right? The type of relationship that they have. Although when you watch Queen Charlotte and you watch the old one, they have a better relationship than they do now, I guess it's because Lady Danbury in the past knew more than the queen, and now the queen just acts like she knows way more than Lady Danbury does. But she's really come a long way, and judging by the looks of it, she's only like, you're like, is it Violet's father the only one she has been with? Because that has gardened her flowers or whatever. So, because I thought she would have made a cute couple with the queen's brother, you know, those two would have been cute together. But I guess she would have to move back to Germany if they were together. Who knows? But in terms of love story, I definitely enjoyed Queen Charlotte's love story, um, better than um, Simon and Daphne, and um, what you call it, the Viscount, Anthony and Kate. Right, like this to me was more beautiful than the other ones. Like there was no dragging on, right? They showed you the story from her perspective, from his perspective, and then together, um and how they came about together to help their nation, right? And she was there for him and helped him, right? And that final scene that they showed you of them underneath the bed, right? I mean, that was beautiful till the end, she was there supporting him, and she knows him, even though like they live apart, they live separately. Um, she still knows how to get through to him, right? And here she was much softer, the older Queen Charlotte. In the Bridgerton ones, like she's much harsher, and she was much harsher to him. Um, but here it was more like she was still in love, you know? And I want to touch on a couple of people. Reynolds, obviously, he passed away because they showed you the scene where when they were young, him and Brimsley were dancing together, and then they showed you Brimsley dancing by himself. And yeah, so he passed away. And then when the queen asked him, like, did you ever marry? He's like, well, I can't find anybody to really spend my life with, while my entire thing is to you, right? So I just want to touch on how Reynolds was just so loyal to the king. And, like, you know, obviously he knew everything that went on with the king, but you could see how loyal he was to him, right? And then I wanted to touch on, like, Cora, because she was very loyal to Lady Danbury as well. Um but they didn't she's she's not really she wasn't in season 1 or season 2. So I wonder if she passed away as well, or if they're going to bring her about in season 3, because she was very right, like, even though she was her maid, she was very close to Lady Danbury. She pretty much knew everything, the ins and out of what happened with Lady Danbury, which I guess is the same position she has with Brimsley. So I wonder if they're going to bring her back. And I wonder also with season 3, how much are they going to go from Queen Charlotte? Because I feel like when they included the current timeline of Queen Charlotte, what happened with between Lady Danbury and Violet. So, lay in episode 6, she finds out that Lady Danbury has one of her father's hats, right? But she mentioned the hats, but she didn't go deep into them being together or asking more questions. So I wonder if they're going to touch on that in season 3. Are they just going to make them start being friends again, or are they going to, you know, is Violet going to bring that up, right? And if you just watch season 2 and season 3, the part about where Violet gets a boyfriend in season 3, which I'm assuming she gets a boyfriend because we saw her getting close to a guy. um it's kind of like a jump from season 2 to season 3, because season 2 was the part where they were showing you the past and how loving she is to the husband. And unless you watch Queen Charlotte to know that, oh, her garden is in bloom, right, you're gonna think it's just a jump. So so um it's almost like you have to watch Queen Charlotte in order to know what's going on, right? And then this brings me to, like, her mom, right? Her back to her mom, what I was saying about her mom who is you know, racist and did not like being around black people. And which is funny because her husband pretty much cheated on her with a black woman, and then her daughter now is going to get herself a black man, and she pretty much has you know, a long line of interracial great grandchildren, right? So that's pretty funny. And then who else do we want to touch on? But yeah, that was pretty much it. So I wonder also if you know, Lady Whistletown is going to start the, you know, episode 1 talking about, oh, how the queen's child, you know, how the baby's doing, right? Because she was like, they ended it with that it might be a girl. So Lady Whistletown is probably going to introduce that in episode 1 of season 3, maybe, and hopefully. But all in all, um, I do I did want to point out something that was in season 1 and season 2, where it's like, how do the people really know the dance move? Like, if you take a step back and like, every song they do a different dance too, right? So you mean to tell me like everybody automatically just know the dance moves to, like, for everyone to be dancing the same exact way? Like, I get it, but realistically, it's like, who's teaching them these dances, you know, for them to all know like the dance move, for everyone to be dancing the same exact way in the ballroom, you know? I mean, it looks nice when we're watching it on TV, but when you think about realistically, is it? So, all in all, I would give Queen Charlotte a 10 because of how they showed you their love story and how they showed you the friendship between, you know, the young Queen Charlotte and um and Lady Danbury, how that came to be. And then how they show you the friendship between Lady Danbury and Violet, how it is now. And, you know, when you think about how it started, because Violet was pretty much young when, um, well, then again, Lady Danbury is young too. Well, was young as well in that time frame when they all met, right? Because Queen Charlotte was 17 at that time. They didn't really put an age on Lady Danbury, but the Violet did wasn't even out in society yet, so I would assume she was like 15 or along those lines, right? So they were all young, so pretty much they all kind of grew up together, and then that's how they all became friends as they are now, obviously with Lady Danbury in the middle, meaning Violet and the Queen are not like close friends, right? But it's Queen Charlotte, Lady Danbury, and then Lady Danbury and Violet who are friends. But yeah, I cannot wait till season 3. And I'm glad I rewatched everything just so that I can be up to date, well, up to the content for when pollen season officially arrives. And this wraps up our journey on the Review Garden. Thank you for joining me today as we explored this drama. If you enjoyed this reaction and review, please remember to subscribe for more insightful videos. Don't forget to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your feedback helps our channel grow. As always, I'm truly grateful for your support and for joining me on this journey on the Review Garden. Until next time, and happy listening. Bye.